You put your initials on the shoes.
Matter of fact, hold on, stay right now. Let me get a full body picture of it. There you go. Nice job. I got this.
So we can all sit, I guess, yeah? Sure. You can sit, I can sit.
Sorry.
Yes.
So, oh.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Need to present art.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may be seated. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi. I'm Lisa Katz, and I want to welcome all of you in person to tonight's inauguration ceremony for our newly elected town board member, Holly Ann Fusco McCall. So before we get moving, I just wanted to thank the Presentation Colors, our Newcastle Police Department, Millwood Fire Department, Chappaqua Fire Department, and Chappaqua Volunteer Ambulance Corps, as well as our Brownie, Daisy, and Girl Scout troops. 1444, 2399, and 2719. You make us all look good, so thank you for being here today and for your wonderful rendition of our national anthem. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Reverend Martha Jacobs up for our invocation.
Good evening. Would you kindly join me in prayer? Oh, Holy One, we are so grateful that we live in a country where democracy is an important part of who we are. But we know democracy requires that people of good faith come together and vision together what is good and right for all people. As Holly takes her seat on this board tonight, may this board be a beacon of showing how to find ways to embrace the differences of its various members. May they be an example of how people of different backgrounds, belief systems, and views celebrate their differences by finding new ways forward that benefit everyone. May difference be seen not as good or bad. Instead, may difference be celebrated and lifted up and move this town forward to a place where all feel welcome and where all views are welcomed and heard. Holy One, may hearts and minds be open anew. And may not only this board, but may the town staff, members of this community, those who serve this community and keep us safe, and all who have a stake in this community, celebrate our diversity and our differences. Together, may we create something new and precious. Love, acceptance, and open arms for people of all ages, races, social standings, backgrounds, cultures, sexual orientations, and gender differences. Let Newcastle be a town that moves people to care for one another in new and different ways. Holy One, grant them wisdom. Grant them courage for the living of these days. Amen.
Amen. Hey. Oh, Mark.
All right, thank you, Dr. Reverend Martha Jacobs, for your meaningful words. You always know just the right thing to say, and we're happy to have you here today. I also want to welcome, before we move on, some of our distinguished guests who have taken time out of their busy schedules to join us here tonight. A warm welcome to our county legislator, Vedat Gashi, County Executive George Latimer, Deputy Executive Ken Jenkins, and somewhere I have our town justices, Doug Kraus and Noah Sorkin. I saw you here, there. And also our esteemed members of the town board. And of course, we are particularly delighted that President Clinton has graciously agreed to preside over tonight's ceremony and to inaugurate our newly elected town board member. Thank you for being here. And just once again, I'm happy to recognize members of our Newcastle Police Department, Millwood Fire Company, Chappaqua Fire Department, and our Chappaqua Volunteer Ambulance Corps for being here today. Our town would not be the same without our brilliant first responders, so thank you for being here. And then naturally, we also have with us, I see back there, Jill Shapiro, our town administrator, and many, many members of our town hall staff, who all of you work tirelessly every day on behalf of the citizens of this town. And we would not be the town we are without you. So thank you very much for being here today and helping to put tonight's event together. So I remember sitting here 9 years ago at my first inauguration feeling both humbled and excited. And Holly, I am sure that you feel the same excitement tonight as I did then. And I'm so happy for you. Serving our community is such a great privilege, and the ability to speak for residents is truly a great trust. So I look forward to your joining us in working together to address all issues that come before the board and our community, and to continue to bring strong communication, resident involvement, and cooperation to town government. At the end of the day, I know all of us sitting here aspire to the same, a stronger, more vibrant, and united community who all have pride in calling Newcastle home. So congratulations, Holly. And before I introduce President Clinton, I wanted to invite our county executive, George Latimer, up here to say a few words. We are glad that the traffic was fast to get you down from Albany back to our wonderful county so you could be with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you very much, Lisa, and I want to wish a happy new year to all of our friends in the town of Newcastle, Chappaqua, Millwood, wherever you come from. As you can appreciate, it's pretty intimidating to be on the same program with a President of the United States. So we'll try to keep it short and sweet. But this is a wonderful night, and for Holly McCall, a great statement of accomplishment as she joins the members of the town board. We in the county government, Ken Jenkins and myself, look forward to working with you as partners, and Holly to try to help your service be exemplary service with the partnership in the county government. I'm mindful that, and the name of the president, William Jefferson Clinton, reminds me that this is, I believe, what Thomas Jefferson envisioned. We're watching in Washington, D.C. right now the process of leadership. We're watching it in Albany. Ken and I were there to see the swearing in of Andre Stewart Cousins as the leader of the state senate. Ken and I were in Mount Vernon. We were in Mount Vernon last night for their city council inauguration and all of these other things. And this is part of something that is fundamentally American. What democracy is and what the peaceful transfer of power is, and what it is when a person steps forward and says, I want to serve, and I've gone before the neighbors, and they have agreed to allow me to serve. And that is what's happening tonight. And Holly's election and her service, as with Lisa and all of the other people who serve in public office, is, I think, exactly what those founding fathers anticipated. They might not have imagined women in those positions. They may not have imagined people of color in those positions, but that is the strength of America, that we have grown as a nation to embrace all different kinds of demographics, and that leadership is wherever we find it. Before I sit down, I just want to, I'm reminded of the song that the Daisies and the Brownies sang so well, our national anthem. You did a great job, girls. It is the most impossible song for an average person to sing, as I squeaked through it myself. But in the song, the last portion of the song I always think about, in which Francis Scott Key says, "Oh say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave?" He's looking generations to the future from when he wrote it. He wrote it, War of 1812, looking at Fort McHenry and the Baltimore Harbor. He's looking to a future that he could not envision, 200 years later where we are today. Does that banner still wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave? And it does tonight in Chappaqua, because this is still the democracy that was fought for that day, that a person serves on a town council. That's the democracy that they saw, and I'm so glad to be a part of it, as well as to be with President William Clinton, who I admire greatly. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam Supervisor.
Thank you so much. So I have the great privilege tonight to introduce a truly remarkable man who is best known as our 42nd President of the United States. I was lucky enough to be in Morocco. I mentioned over New Year's, and they love you there. And everywhere I've had the privilege of traveling around the world, and every time we mention that I even know you in some breath, people are amazed and they can't stop exclaiming about how wonderful you are, both as a person and as our president. So I'm thrilled that you're here tonight. So while the world may know you that way, we here in Newcastle also know you as a treasured friend and neighbor, a husband, father, and grandfather, as a frequent Kittle House diner and shopper around town, and as a man who truly loves our town and is giving of his time to our wonderful community at events like this. You're an inspiration for me and so many others who have taught us not to bow to convention, but to continue to fight to make the world a better place, not just today, but for future generations. And we are honored to have you here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, President William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you very much. First of all, the truth is I'm just a sub. Hillary wanted to be here very much tonight. Sort of, I wouldn't say gloat, but at least smile over the continued feminization of the government of Chappaqua. She got sick, and this morning, about 3 o'clock, I heard her coughing, and she woke me up, and I looked at her, and you know, she has this wonderful big voice, and she said, "I can't talk. You have to do this for me." So I saluted and said yes. Secret to a long marriage. But I'm honored to be here to congratulate and inaugurate Holly, to be here with the government of my community, with the county supervisor and other Westchester officials. I'm really proud to live in a county where every town has a library, old-fashioned. Most of them have free Wi-Fi for senior citizens and others who can't afford it and couldn't get it. Where we have the largest amount of green space per capita of any urbanized county in the entire United States. Where the pastor who prayed over us lets me walk in her beautiful grounds so that I can keep up some measure of exercise as I age. And I was thinking about all that when I watched the spat unfolding on television today. To make a point not confined to party. The thing that makes democracy work is not just majority rule. It's minority rights, individual rights, the rule of law, and some system for shared decision-making and rule-making. And when there are disputes, there's a sense that there's a fair process to resolve them. I mean, with what happened, I will confess I was very pleased that Mr. Lula won the election in Brazil, but it was very close. And yet, his opponent, who the outcome of the election, but supervised a peaceful transfer. In Colombia, a country I've spent enormous amounts of time in, both as president and in the years since, they elected their first left-wing government. And Colombia is the oldest democracy in the Americas except for the United States. They elected a former mayor of Bogota I met a decade ago when I was helping Colombia develop its first climate change initiatives, and he was already driving an electric car in Bogota. And his vice president is the first Afro-Colombian woman ever elected to high office with a successful record as a social activist. His predecessor, Ivan Duque, is also a friend of mine. He was a conservative who dreamed of trying to bring Colombia together and then was derailed by COVID and the horrible problems in Venezuela, where a country much smaller than us found itself taking in well over 1 million Venezuelan refugees. And they did it without a thought because 20 years earlier when Colombia was torn up, the Venezuelans had taken Colombians in. But he couldn't win the election because too many people were in too much trouble. And the collapse of the economy led to the rise again of narco trafficking and gangs and violence. But he ordered his government to have the smoothest, most positive possible transition. I say that because in the end, the greatest test of democracy is the one you can see written about in all the journals covering the Constitutional Convention so long ago. Which matters more, our differences or our common humanity? Our differences matter a lot, but only when they're used to reach better decisions. I can fill this room with the studies that have been done showing that people with diverse opinions make better decisions than homogenous groups or lone geniuses. There have been example after example after example of it. When things get tough or people feel disrespected or their grievances are aggravated, we tend to think only our differences matter. And the minute we start thinking that, we lose the edge that our differences give us. The United States, I still believe, is the best positioned country in the world for the 21st century. Because we are relatively young, although we better get over being against immigration because our birth rate is now below replacement level. And it will make us older quicker. I've reached the age where I always pull for the oldest contestant in every contest. But it is the constant infusion of youth and energy and ideas that keeps the country going. How will we manage our differences? I mean, look around this room. Imagine what this event would have looked like 40 years ago. I mean, just look. There'd be too many people that look like me. Old white guys in suits. Boring. I'm glad to see my demographic has not been entirely eliminated. And that's the whole point of inclusive communities. We're dealing with a great challenge that has affected my life personally more times than I care to think about. Where the advances in medicine, for example, have allowed people to hang around with us after what matters most about them is gone. Their mind, their ability to communicate their feelings. But we also are living in a time where there are unprecedented people with the capacity to do what they hired on to do. Or in the case of like Queen Elizabeth, what they were born to do. And we have to find a way to have rousing arguments and still have inclusive societies. Now, Tali Bennett, who recently ceded the prime ministership of Israel back to Mr. Netanyahu, is a very conservative man. He was against the Palestinian state. He thought I was wrong about everything when I was president. But he believed in democracy. And he was not afraid to deal with people who disagreed with him. So he put together this incredibly diverse government that included the head of the largest Muslim party in Israel. He wrote a wonderful article, I don't know if you saw it in the New York Times about a week ago, that said, I was convinced this guy was a terrorist. But I sat down with him, I talked to him, and I realized I was wrong. How long has it been since you heard somebody in public life say that? I realized I was wrong. And the more we talked, all of us from right to left in this huge, cumbersome coalition, which was basically designed to thwart Mr. Netanyahu being prime minister for life. The longer we talked, the more we realized that we agreed on more than 2/3 of the major issues facing Israel. So we decided our philosophy would be to be the government of the 70% rule. We wouldn't pretend we didn't have any differences. We wouldn't fool the people we were trying to represent. We wouldn't try to get bogus press. We just said it only makes sense for us to work on the problems we can work on, and the 70% of the things we agree on. And the government persisted until two people, one on the far left of the coalition, one on the far right, were basically intimidated out of their participation. So all the stuff we've been facing in America, we're facing it everywhere. And I think we should start with something that I saw in Holly's campaign. She didn't act like she was entitled to this job. She worked her heart out for it. She worked and she worked and she worked and she worked, and people worked for her. And they shook hands and knocked on doors. When she lost her last election, she didn't swell up and curl up. She took a deep breath and kept going. I have lost 2 elections in my life. The first time I ran for Congress in the Watergate years in 1974, but I ran against a guy with 85% approval and 99% name recognition, and I was 0-0. I got over 48% of the vote. And his approval dropped all the way to 69%, but mine went from 0 to 66, and that's almost exactly what I lost by. I spent the rest of my life thanking that guy for beating me, because I never would have become president if I'd gone to the House in 1974. Democracy is a process. It's bigger than all of us. And it makes us bigger when we give ourselves to it. I was interested in the last election, which was still razor thin. The Democrats won, I think, 8 seats by 8/10 of 1 point or less. And the Republicans won about the same amount. I think that we have to face the fact that once you get into identity politics, if all that matters is divisive identity instead of inclusive identity, we're gonna stay divided. But we have to show up. We have to save our democracy. If you lose your freedom, everything else counts for less. That's why I wear this Ukrainian pin almost every time I'm forced to put on a coat. I like President Zelensky, and I've done what I could to support him, and it was interesting. To give you an example of the importance of public service, I was reading a big article about Ukraine the other day, and they're facing a horrible winter, and Putin just blew up all these buildings and destroyed all this power, and people are cold and it's dark. And the sun goes down early. And there was Alice Challen, a woman trained at Penn State as an architect, who became interested in sustainable design, who decided that she needed to democratize solar power and develop these fold-out solar puffs, she called them, with cloth, and you pull them out and they turn on. And she was there, walking in the building, giving these things out by the hundreds, by the thousands to people. And we take this for granted, but those people will need it. I met her in the streets of Port-au-Prince doing the same thing after the earthquake 12 years ago. So there's something to be said for citizen service, for people showing up for elections and people working in them, and for people, whether they win or lose, going on. Best thing I think Hillary's done since losing the presidency was probably her help to get literally thousands of people out of Ukraine, out of Afghanistan before it collapsed. And you know, we have a lot of Albanians in this community and in this county. So she called the president of Albania and said, "Will you take some Afghans?" And he said, "Well, we're not a rich country, but we don't say no to your family after what you did in Kosovo." And they took a bunch of Afghans. And we got great feedback on it, on what happened and how they're doing. And then they found out we weren't so different after all. The other day, in this job you got, you have to represent people. I was down at the local taco station downtown in Chappaqua. It belongs to an Albanian. It is managed by a Serbian. And all the cooks are Latinos, because they know what they're doing. So we just had 2 new restaurants in Chappaqua. They both belong to Albanians. So I'm in there, and the woman that runs it is delightful, said, "You been to the new restaurant yet?" I keep in mind she's a Serbian, which means that she is in all probability an Eastern Orthodox Christian whose group was responsible for what happened in Bosnia and supported Mr. Milosevic against the aspirations of the Kosovo. She said, "You've been to these new restaurants?" I said, "Well, I went to the one around the corner here." She said, "He's a good man." But she said, "You gotta go to the one up the hill too." Now she said, "That man is a Muslim, but he is a wonderful person, and you need to go there." And I thought to myself, why do we have to leave home and go so far away to learn to open ourselves to others? So I say to Holly, to Lisa, to George, to all of you, I thank you for your service. One more thing. I was asked to do one of these master classes a year ago. You know what they are when people get it, so you subscribe to it. And Hillary and I did it separately, and then we did one together. But I told all these stories, like the stories I've been telling you. But the one that meant the most to me was the story of my last class in 8th grade science. And the guy that was asking me questions looked at me like I slipped the gas, and she said, "You know, you've been to Morocco, you've been to Russia, you've been to China, you've been all this stuff." I said, "Well, let me tell you what happened. My teacher was a man named Vernon Doki. He was an ex-coach. A lot of times when people couldn't coach anymore, they had to teach more until they could get their full retirement. Arkansas teachers were the second poorest paid in America. They made position. His wife was my history teacher. She was wonderful. His sister-in-law was my algebra and geometry teacher. So he was really good. But he was not a conventionally handsome man. He wore big Coke bottle glasses before there were any contact lenses. And he got heavier as he got older, but he was an Arkansas teacher, he couldn't afford new clothes, so he just kept bulging out of them. And he had this habit of smoking cheap cigars in a plastic cigar holder, and he bit down on it, and his whole face looked pinched. No one would think he was handsome. We get to the last day. He said, "Kids, you won't remember anything you learned in 8th grade science. If you don't remember anything else, remember this one thing. Every single morning, I get up and I go into the bathroom and I throw water on my face, wash it off, I put my shaving cream on, I shave, and I wipe the leather off. I look in that mirror and I say, 'Vernon, you're beautiful.'" He said, "You remember that. If you remember that one thing, everyone wants to believe that it'll take you long. So look around this beautiful crowd. You shouldn't spend so much time fighting. You should spend more time building. And that is what I wish for you and for you and for all of you who have given so much to public service. So I'm kind of gonna make you legal. You raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Holly F. McCall,
I, Holly Ann Busco McCall,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Town Council member of the Town of Newcastle,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as council member of the town of Newcastle,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. As far as subs go, probably more than I could ask for. I'm incredibly grateful today, and saying thank you is insufficient. I am honored and I'm humbled to mark the start of this journey with someone who has been an inspiration and a role model, and who I also cast my very first vote for. So thank you, Mr. President. It's an absolute honor to have you swear me in. And thank you so much to my family, my parents, Jim and Karen, who are here from Massachusetts and have always been my biggest cheerleaders. To my husband, Chris, and our boys, Alexander and Jonathan. You've been by my side every step of my activism and my public service journey, even being willing to eat an absolutely unreasonable amount of takeout food in the past 2 years. And thank you to all my friends. You are my family here too, and I'm so grateful for your support and your friendship. Thank you to each one of you who took the time out of your day to be here and share this day with me. I'm incredibly grateful to Newcastle and the voters for giving me this opportunity to serve. It is truly an honor, and I will continue to work to earn that privilege every day. As Mr. President said, we know that people will disagree, and it is my promise to listen and serve every resident of Newcastle and be your advocate. I look forward to working with my fellow board members, the town staff, to continue to build an even better Newcastle. Thank you. Wait, Dr. Reverend Jacobs. I had to get the order right. Legislator Gashi, County Executive George Latimer, and Deputy Executive Ken Jenkins. Thank you for also being my supporters and my friends, and I look forward to working with you as well in this capacity. Thank you to the Brownies, the Daisies, and the Girl Scouts. I am so glad that you were here, and thank you so much for your patience, your beautiful singing, and to your parents for letting you stay out late. So, again, thank you, and I'm ready to get to work.
All right.
All right, well, this is an exciting evening. So to close out this event, I would like to bring up our Brownies, Daisies, and Girl Scouts again. If you could lead us in God Bless America. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
All right, thank you all for coming tonight, and on behalf of the town board, including its newly inaugurated member, I'd like to thank you for your faith in us, and we promise to work hard to make Newcastle even better than it already is. Thanks for coming. Good night.